Alright, so we're back ranking soundtracks again, and I wasn't so sure what direction I wanted to go with the series, on whether or not I should continue on with the Mega Man games, or jump all over the place, kind of like I do with my reviews and walkthroughs. But the most requests that I seemed to get were for Mega Man 2, and for continuing on with the Mega Man series. So I haven't made any, concrete plans on what I want to do going forward, but I am going to at least go on to Mega Man 2 next, and we'll see how it goes. Leave your comments on what you'd like to see me do next, and, I'll throw that into the blender, and we'll see what comes out of it next time. So, also like the last game, I'm only doing the stage themes. So, there won't be the end credits, there won't be the stage select, there won't be the password, game over, and unfortunately there won't be the amazing intro that ended up becoming essentially Mega Man's theme music. I just want to have like a uniform, consistent ranking, and I feel like these songs are just written entirely for a whole different purpose than what the stage themes are. So it's really like if you were ranking studio albums and you threw in the EPs and the live albums and the compilations, they don't mesh up. So I'm just doing this for the sake of the uniformity. So like the last game, and I'm probably gonna do this with all the videos in this series, I'm gonna throw out the disclaimer that these are my opinions. I'm not begrudging anybody else's opinions at all. This is not a definitive list. This is subjective. There's nothing objective at all about coming up with a top 10 or top 12 whatever list of your favorite things. This is just a breakdown, a rundown, and a discussion. That's pretty much all it is. My opinion is my opinion. It means shit just as much as everybody else's opinion means shit in the grand scheme of things. So, if your favorite is low, then sorry. You don't take it personally. I won't take it personally if you hate my list either. So, it's a two-way street. Anyway, on to the rankings. At number 10, Heat Man. I said in Mega Man 1 that Fireman stage the theme fit the stage the best out of all the rest of the levels. And I gotta say that Heat Man's is probably the same thing with Mega Man 2, and I don't know if there's any kind of correlation there because they're both fire-based Robot Masters. Maybe creating a song with a fire theme is easier than everything else. I don't know, but I think that Heat Man's song probably ranks among the highest as far as fitting the stage theme. But the song itself, I don't love it. I like it. It's really cool. It's more about mood than melody, really. Like I said, it fits the stage, and I wouldn't want any other song to be in this stage. It just wouldn't work. And in fact, I actually think that that Heat Man song sounds more fitting for its stage than Fireman's did. So at this stage of the game, in the first two Mega Mans, Heat Man is the king as far as apropos stage themes. But I don't know. There's something about it that it doesn't pull me in. And I think it's just a victim of the soundtrack. As far as rankings go, it's a victim of being lined up with the rest of this soundtrack. At number 9, Crash Man. My buddy and fellow collaborator Hanu the Honda Makinen once said that Crash Man's song sounds like an aerobics workout video. And it really does. At least the intro riff does. It definitely is upbeat, and it's, again, strange that the second Mega Man in a row with a bomb-themed Robot Master has something that's as upbeat as it is. But I do like Crash Man's theme, and what I do like about it is its unique arrangement. The main verse is kind of built off of the intro. It's the same riff, but there's a key change, and the beat drops in. But then instead of having a recurring refrain, it actually it goes into this bridge section and then falls back into the main verse again. then when it comes back time for the bridge again, it's actually a whole nother bridge. And then it alternates back and forth between, it always goes back to the main verse, but then the bridges alternate throughout. But it's very unique to the rest of the soundtracks in the whole series of Mega Man. So yeah, unique arrangement and a unique sound. It doesn't sound anything like anything else on the soundtrack, and pretty much like anything else in any other Mega Man game. It stands out on its own. I like it, but don't love it. At number 8, Dr. Wily Stages 3, 4, and 5. This one I used to like a lot. Of course, the Wily themes you don't hear as often because they're at the end of the game and you're playing through over the Robot Masters, and so they don't have as much of a chance of getting overplayed, I guess, in your ears. It's kind of like the opposite of most albums that get released, where the singles are the ones that get overplayed, and you'll find about 2 or 3 of them per a 12-song album. Whereas in the Mega Man games, if anything is going to be quote-unquote overplayed, it would be the 8 Robot Master themes, and then you've got a couple of Wily or Castle themes on top of it. So it's a strange reversal of the roles, I guess, if you want to think of it in that light. But this Wily theme, I remember enjoying a lot more than I would have expected to, putting it at this part of the list. But really, when I think about it, it reminds me a lot of Wily 3 and 4 from Mega Man 1. It's very repetitive, but it's also really dark and foreboding and fitting the final stages that you're approaching. There's just such a semblance of danger and caution. Unlike a lot of Mega Man levels, these stages are not fast-paced, and there's actually a lack of enemies throughout both stages. Instead of, taking on this slew of robots in probably about 75% of the levels, and really I'm talking about stages 3 and 4 because the 5th one is just a rematch of Robot Masters. Stages 3 and 4, about 75% to 80% maybe of the levels don't have enemies. Really, it's just being careful where you walk, being careful where you drop. There's a lot of, like I said, caution involved. It reminds me a lot of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where Indy has to spell Jehovah on the stones. So it's a great backdrop, and it's not the same. It's all the way throughout. It's just the same riff. It just keeps going up the scale until it gets to the end and then drops all the way back down. I do like that transition of when you're way up at the high notes and then it slides all the way down and then goes back up. It's a pretty cool dynamic, but at the same time, the riff does get a little tiresome, and you do have this in 3 straight stages. Although fortunately, on the 5th one, you're listening to the boss theme more than anything else. I also like how the percussion and the bass, the whole rhythm section, is briskly paced. It's got this really up-tempo pace going on, while the main melody riff is slower. I like that kind of shit, that contrast. I think one of the weaknesses, though, of having a repetitious song like this, though, is because most people are going to be spending a lot of time charging up Crash Man's weapon to go back in the second attempt to fight the bosses. And you've got, repetitious music and a repetitious task going on. It's a bit of a perfect storm. And you may get tired of the music by then, too. It's a pretty cool song, and it did have potential. I don't know if I'd say I'd rather it have had another section, because there would not be that transition that I like so much. And, it's like, what do you do from there? The whole theme of caution and danger may have been lost if they had added another riff to it. So I think it is what it is, and it is what it should be, but as far as the songs themselves go, there are others I like more. For example, number 7, Bubble Man. I mentioned Crash Man earlier having a unique sound and a unique mood and everything else. Bubbleman is similar in the regard of it's upbeat, poppy kind of sound, but it's a lot more happy, and I hate to use the adjective bubbly because of, it's a little bit too obvious, but it kind of is. I don't know, I mean, when you listen to Bubbleman's theme, it's a really interesting dynamic shift from what's happening. I mean, you're actually in a fight for your life against these evil robots, avoiding these balls of spikes and falling crabs from the sky. What's happening is a lot more deadly than what the music is presenting. The Bubbleman is this very pleasant, comforting tune that if I popped in Bubbleman's song in my car right after I got out of a difficult day at work, it would immediately make me feel better. But I like that dynamic between the bubbly song and the chaos that's going on around you at the time. Even if you're fighting a lot of, cute enemies like frogs and crabs and whatnot. Not to mention Bubbleman himself, who is also a bit of a goofball. So I enjoy Bubbleman's music, but I don't think it stands out as much as the ones that will follow it. Number 6, Airman. Boy, you know that you've got yourself an awesome soundtrack when a song like Airman's stage is coming in at the middle of the pack. This one definitely rocks. It has this really heavy riff at the beginning. And then it goes off into the solo that just shreds the shit out of everything in its path. And then concludes with this warm little riff that immediately goes right back into the heavy intro. I love the way it does that. I would have expected, had I had any expectations whatsoever about the soundtrack when I first played it, that Airman's song would sound a little more like a spacey soundscape, light, feathery, on clouds kind of a thing to correlate with the air theme and the cloud theme and whatnot, but I'm glad that they didn't do that. Number 5, Quickman. I love the layering that's going on in Quickman's song. Man, there's a lot of tracks happening here. You got the main drums, you've got the synthy electronic percussion going on there, you have a bass riff, and you have the main melody lead. So that's like 4 tracks right there, and then this other riff gets overlaid on top of all that immediately thereafter. Like, how the hell are they doing that? I didn't even think that it was possible to have that many tracks in an NES 8-bit cartridge. I'm not a technical wizard or anything like that, but I thought there was a lot more limitations with the technology at the time. Now, as far as the song goes, like I said, I like that layering. I like how there's all that going on at the same time, and I like how there's, like I said, an additional riff added on top of the main one. The second half of the song is alright, but it doesn't last that long, and then it comes back into the main riff, which you'll hear for about, 75% of the loop, which is fine with me because that's definitely the better part of the song for me. But it doesn't get too repetitious for me because it builds on top of it, what it was, and you kind of calibrate yourself to just the slight changes that are happening. And it's such a cool riff on top of it. Number 4, Flashman. Speaking of build-up, Flashman's song does an excellent job of building up. The intro goes back and forth between this slow, brooding, dark riff to these busy, stabby hits, and it goes back and forth between that a few times, and then falls into the heart of the song, which is kind of a combination of those two traits all at the same time. It has this dark atmosphere to it, but it's still generally upbeat. It's a really cool blend. It fits great with this stage, whatever the hell place you're in, with the goddamn maze of flashy tiles. The only thing I wish that they could have done maybe was, because that intro is so awesome, I kind of wish that they had revisited it in the loop. Like maybe instead of falling back to the main riff, it comes back to the intro, but this time the intro has more accompaniment in the percussion. than it did in the intro. I don't know. Maybe the reason why I like the intro so much is because you only hear it the one time when you listen back to it, and it leaves you wanting it again. Maybe if I heard it more times, it would kind of ruin it for me. So I'm not gonna even say that I wish it could have changed. I just think it would have been interesting to hear how that would have came out. But yeah, Flashman song is awesome. It could have definitely ranked number 1 against several of the other Mega Man soundtracks, but instead it has these 3 following it. Number 3, Woodman. Woodman's song is very one-dimensional. You know, you hear the same riff over and over again throughout most of the song. Even when it goes into the next section, it's just an alternate version of the same riff. The one thing that does keep it afloat, though, is it's just a fucking awesome riff. It slays. I mean, this is me personally. Some people may not agree with me on this, but I don't get tired of that riff ever. It could play the same all the way through, but the thing is, it isn't exactly the same. There are slight nuances, particularly with the end of each bar. So there's just enough in there going on to differentiate it. But it, you know, like I said, it is repetitious, and even when it goes into the next section, it's just another take on the same riff. It really could have used something else going on there, but I friggin' love it, and I don't get sick of it. It probably could have been my favorite riff in the game, and maybe my favorite song in the game, if they added a little bit more beef to it, if they had added another section to the song. And they could have done quite a bit too, like the intro you never hear from again. They could have fallen back to the intro and maybe just added a riff on top of it, because all it is drums. So something like that could have made the song a little more three-dimensional, but I like it too much as it is to not put it up as high as I do. It might have been number 2 if they had gone that route. Instead, number 2 is Metal Man. Yeah, Metal Man's song fucking rocks. Speaking of little nuances in the main riff, Metal Man's kind of does the same thing, where when you're hearing the riff repeat, you're not hearing the exact same pattern. There's a couple of little tweaks that are done each time with the at the end of each bar. So not every pattern is exactly the same. There's just enough of a difference there without it going all over the place. It is little things like that that keep it fresh sounding, and like I said with Woodman's, something like that keeps a repetitive riff from sounding too repetitive. And Metal Man's is even better because it's not the same riff all throughout the song. Instead, you're getting this main riff with some, light nuances sprinkled throughout each one. Not to mention there's a whole nother section. But Metal Man's theme just rules. And now the biggest surprise you'll ever hear in your life. Number 1, Dr. Wily Stages 1 and 2. I really don't like to use the word epic. It's one of the most overused words, and it kind of has killed the meaning of it. But this song kind of is epic. There's lots of sections, lots of riff changes. It's almost progressive. It's definitely the most complex stage theme in any Mega Man game. There's so many changes. The tempo never changes, but the riffs continuously change. And there's a lot of amazing stuff going on in there. It's not just noodling around. I mean, these riffs were carefully constructed. There's kind of even a callback to Woodman's theme in one of the parts. And the skeleton of the song sounds a lot like Woodman's theme anyway. This is basically Woodman's theme on crack. Like everything that Woodman's theme failed at, which was, add a little bit more meat to the bones, Dr. Wily's 1 and 2 does the opposite, where it pretty much stole the meat that should have been Woodman's theme and dropped it into its own theme and just injected it with steroids, because it is an amazing piece of music. It really is. The only thing about it is that it tends to get I don't want to say overhyped or overrated. I don't think it's overrated, but I think it deserves all the critical acclaim that it's gotten, but I think it gets treated like it's way above every other Mega Man theme that was ever created. I don't think there's that much separation between this and everything else. I think that people often treat it like it's the god among these relatively insignificant beings below it. I don't even know if I'd say it's my favorite Mega Man song in the whole series. It's definitely up there. I mean, I have it ranked at the top of my favorite soundtrack, and I didn't even have to really think about it. But I think that the distance between Wily 1 and 2 and everything else in the Mega Man series isn't that far, if it even is. I mean, you could make a case for other songs. In fact, you can make a case for any song. You know, like I said, it's your opinion. There is no end-all be-all with this. It's just what you like the most. And if you like Wily 3, 4, and 5 more than 1 and 2, then you like that song more. There's nothing to say that that song isn't better than this, because it's all up to the listener. So, a quick recap of the list. At number 10, Heat Man. Number 9, Crash Man. At number 8, Dr. Wily Stages 3, 4, and 5. Number 7, Bubble Man. Number 6, Airman. Number 5, Quick Man. Number 4, Flash Man. Number 3, Woodman. Number 2, Metal Man. And number 1, Dr. Wily Stages 1 and 2. So that's Mega Man 2. That's the end of this one. And, you know, like I said, give your thoughts, give your rankings, give your opinions. That's what this series is really all about, is discussion, debate, and enjoying some tunes. Also, leave your thoughts on where you'd like me to go next. Should I just press on with Mega Man 3 and keep this series going, or should I go elsewhere? Let me know in the comments below. So that wraps up this edition of Ranking the Soundtrack. See you next time.